Hey everybody, Brennan here. I wanted to talk about something that's really fucking pissing me off right now, and that's the fact that people have been comparing the stories of Caitlyn Jenner with Rachel Dolezal, and I'm gonna tell you right now why you need to stop talking about that like 100% because transraciality is fucking bullshit, and it's really making me mad to hear these conversations. It's completely chased me off the internet for the past week because I can't sit there and watch people have these conversations unchecked by people who claim to be allies. People who claim to be allies will post things, and then their friends say all this like really messed up stuff, and then it just gets unchecked. So I just wanted to set the record straight about the difference between race and gender and why comparing the two is extremely dangerous. Not just problematic, it's dangerous. Basically, race is a social construct. There are ethnic differences like, skin tone, hair texture. None of these things are biochemical. All of these things are genetic. There is no feasible way that you could ever have been born with a white parent and a white parent as a black person. There is no reason. And also, if you're born into a white family, there is no reason that you were in any way in touch historically, genealogically, or like in any way with what black people have gone through historically and currently in this country. Like that's not a thing. Like race is like not it's genetic, it's not fucking biochemical. Like that's not how that works. It's also really dangerous because it harkens back to the idea that has been refuted in the 20th century and took a lot of energy and a lot of push by like black people and people of color to be acknowledged, is that the black and the non-black brain are no different from one another. For years, we upheld the idea that people of color were less intelligent and less capable than white people. This was upheld by science for centuries, and was refuted in the 20th century thanks to genetics, and thanks to all these advances in science, because we know nothing about the world around us. When it gets right down to it, we know very little about the world around us. And in this country, we used to breed black people, our black slaves, like dogs, breeding aggressive traits with aggressive. It's disgusting. I can't even get into that. And the idea that we're genetically different by race gets back into that idea that we're inherently different, we have different capabilities, and it's an idea that needs to go away and that we've moved past, thankfully, or not moved past, we have started to move past and gotten scientific basis for moving past in society, and we need to not go back in there. So that's what I'm going to say about race, and now I'm going to talk about why transgenderism is completely fucking legitimate, whereas transracialism is not. Okay, human beings are not flowers. We are human beings. We're a very, very complicated animal. In utero, it takes a lot for us to, become a human. Gender is very complicated. Gender isn't genetic. The chance, I can't even think of a way that gender would be genetic. If you have more women in your family, you're going to be born female. No, that's not how that works. That's not how gender works. Gender is way more complicated. Physical sex itself is based on a variety of factors that we don't even fully understand yet. We know very little about gender, like endocrinology and embryology and all these studies that are going into neurology, how we understand gender, are completely new and have only been around for 50 years, 50 to 100 years. So, oh my god, I'm losing train of thought because I'm so angry. These things make me so angry, and it's really hard for me to talk about it. So yeah, there is a chance that because your physical sex at the time that you're born, the structure of your genitals inside of your, outside of your body, and the structure of your reproductive organs are determined in utero by both your chromosomes and hormone levels. These things are hair triggered. Hormone levels are hair triggered. Any difference could make you look completely different when you're born, and so that gives more ground to being trans than being transracial. That doesn't. Physical sex is biochemical, it's chromosomal, it's not determined on genetic factors. I hope everybody's with me here. There's also, because aspects of what we call physical sex include biochemical aspects, such as being testosterone ruled versus being estrogen ruled. These are two very different things. And having gone through being ruled by two different biochemistries in one lifetime, I can tell you 100% that feeling female is very different than feeling male. There are two very different physical sensations. I know, even if I'm not keeping track of my shot, I know exactly when my testosterone levels drop because I feel like I'm about to have my period. I feel female. Like, that is a physical sensation. So that's a thing. Like, okay, we're gonna like put that aside for now and talk about how fucking gender identity was actually discovered. It's not measurable. It is not measurable yet, but it was discovered through the John Money and David Reimer intersex studies in the 60s. And okay, I'm gonna get into that real quick because it's fucking fascinating and it'll probably blow your mind. This kid named David Reimer was circumcised, and it was a horrible botched circumcision. Like, I have a lot of opinions about circumcision that I'm just gonna leave aside. That's genital mutilation, and mine never humble. I don't think anybody should be surgically operating on a baby's genitals. I think that's disgusting. I think it's barbaric. Religious reasons aside, cultural reasons aside, there's no, like, medical reason to do that. There's also no medical reason to change a child's sex when they're born, and this happens all the time. This still happens today. Babies are operated on today to have their genitals conform to what we believe a male and a female's genitals should look like. This happens all the time. You can read about it. Like, you can read about disorders of sexual development. There's a great documentary put out by BBC called Me, My Sex and I. You should totally check it out. It's very good. It'll blow your fucking mind if you don't know anything, which I doubt you do, about intersexuality, about disorders of sexual development, and about people who fall between, because physical sex is a spectrum the same way gender is. Like, so David Reimer was a kid who was circumcised, and basically his dick, well, they burned it. They tried to burn the foreskin off, which I guess was like a method at the time, and he ended up losing his penis. And so this child had lost his penis and was like operated on to conform to more of like a feminine, like a female genital structure, and had been raised by his parents as a woman, as a girl named Brenda, without his knowledge. So little Brenda was then picked up by John Money because he was studying sexology and intersexuality and things like that at Johns Hopkins, and this was basically like the perfect situation that like nobody could ethically recreate, having found like a child who like was unaware that they were being raised in the wrong gender. So this kid had no knowledge their entire life that they were male-bodied until they were about like in their teenage years, and there had been like multiple surgeries, and there was like a lot of abuse going on in the medical institution with them. There's also a documentary on YouTube called The David Reimer Story. You can get more information about that story on there. But basically, this person, despite having genitals that closely conform to female, and having been told his entire life that he was female, and having been raised as a female, was still uncomfortable with that role, was still uncomfortable with himself in that role, and still didn't think of himself as female, to the point that his parents had to break the fucking news to him, and he ended up killing himself. Like, so there's something that exists. That study proved that there's something that exists separate from gender presentation, separate from the way you're raised, separate from your body, that indicates gender to a person. It's tangible, it's not measurable, but it's been discovered as something separate than like everything else. So gender identity is a thing. It's an absolute thing. My gender identity is more on the male side, even though I was born in a female body. Like, that's... I don't have a way of explaining that. I don't, like, I have full confidence that science will. I mean, we're only... Like I said, neurology is such a recent science. We're only just starting to understand the human brain. We're only just starting to understand hormones. Endocrinology's only been around probably since, in the form it is today, since the 1920s. Like, these are very, very recent sciences. Even psychology is a recent science if you're looking at it compared to, like, disease pathology. So, yeah. And the biggest reason why, like, you can't really compare being transracial, being transgender, is that Rachel Dolezal is a fraud. Like, she's a fraud. She manipulated people. She's manipulating her younger brother, pretending that that's her son. She is hurting people. She's laying claim to a struggle and an identity that she has no way of understanding, and the only way she's able to understand it is by putting on spray tanner and calling herself black. Like, and she has used her white privilege to like be able to do that and like get ahead, and it's like really fucked up. Like she's a fraud, and transgender people aren't frauds. Like, we're not lying to people, we're not deceiving anybody. Like, this is who I am. Like, I'm incapable of lying about myself at this point. Like, I went through 25, and that's why I'm such a candid person, is because I went through 25 years of living a fucking lie. Like, I lived a lie. Like, it was a carefully constructed, exhausting lie. And, like, I'm incapable of not being myself. I'm incapable of going out in the world and pretending to be a woman again. I'm totally, I can't mentally do it. That takes a pathology I don't have. I mean, for a long time, it took drugs and alcohol to keep me lying, and to keep me from questioning the lie I was living. But yeah, that woman's a fraud, and like, trans people, I mean, I don't think that I get annoyed when people call me brave, because it's like, I shouldn't have to be brave. It's sad that someone like me that's just being me is like brave in this world. Like, that's really sad. But with Caitlyn Jenner, regardless of her wealth and social standing and access to healthcare and the surgeries that she wanted, she's brave. Like, she's being true to herself, and Rachel Dolezal is not, and has no ground to stand on, and is a fucking liar and a fraud, like, and has deceived people for decades, and hurt a lot of people in the process. And I'm not hurting anybody, and if I am, that's in their head. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. So, like, just share this video with your networks. It's way longer than I wanted it to be. But transracial is not a thing. Stop saying it. It hurts my community. It hurts black people. Just shut the fuck up and read a book. Like, seriously. It's, like, ridiculous.